Well, our top focus continues to be Pakistan this Thursday because Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif is appearing before a Supreme Court appointed team probing the Panama Gate graft case. Sharif is appearing before the probe officers at Islamabad's Judicial Academy, which has temporarily been turned into the JIT's secretariat. Sharif has denied any wrongdoing by his family. He is alleged to have used offshore companies to buy luxury flats in a posh London neighborhood. Sharif maintains that his family wealth was acquired legally. Joined in the studio right now by Razaul Hassan Laskar. He's the associate editor of the Hindustan Times. Raza, thanks very much for joining us here on the broadcast. Do you think, after listening to what Omar Chima has said, do you think that the Sharif family was caught off guard, or were they suspecting this at some level?
Well, you know, I mean, I think they were definitely not prepared for the fact that it would go to this extent, you know, that the Prime Minister personally would be called to appear in front of a joint investigation team. I think that was something that they were not expecting. You know, the Sharif family has had problems with its assets for a very, very long time. There were a number of cases that were in the Punjab High Court. Some of them went up to higher courts, but those have been dragging on for years and there was never any breakthrough. Mainly because there was never any evidence. But the Panama Papers case is different because for the first time, you know, here were documents which clearly you know, showed links between the Sharif family and properties worth millions of dollars in London and other places, you know. It was the first almost tangible, you know, documents which showed a kind of a money trail. Right.
You know, we've been listening to a lot of things that people on the streets. Taha's been speaking with regular Pakistanis, and there seems to be a mix of emotion there. Some of them are extremely satisfied with the fact that this has reached where it has, but at the same time, they're all very embarrassed by the fact that the sitting Prime Minister is facing a probe. Do you think that really reflects the situation in many ways?
Well, let's not forget one thing. You know, all said and done, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif remains one of the most popular politicians in Pakistan, especially in Punjab, which is his heartland. So he has, you know, considerable support. There are a lot of people who will back him irrespective of the fact that he could have been involved in some sort of a scam. Even if it was proved that he was involved in a scam, those people are not going to desert him. But on the other hand, there are a lot of poor Pakistanis who, you know, set a lot of stock by the Supreme Court, by the judiciary. These are the people who think the politicians have been getting away with things for far too long. They think the judiciary is doing the right thing. So there are a lot of people on the streets who will back the judiciary and say, you know, it's time to make politicians accountable. I mean, there's been a culture of not having politicians accountable in Pakistan, as in most other South Asian countries, for far too long.
Right, but also speaking of that Supreme Court appointed joint investigation team, there are members of the ISI and the military intelligence in there. What do you have to say about the composition of that team?
That is something that I mean, this is purely my personal opinion. If you take any other democracy in South Asia, if a politician were to be investigated for financial irregularities, would you have people from the military spy agencies in the joint investigation team? I mean, in a country like India, no. I mean, the military has no business investigating financial irregularities. They have no special expertise that they can bring to this investigation. They are better off investigating national security issues. The allegations against Nawaz Sharif, did they violate national security in any way? I don't think so.
Right.
These are all financial, you know, I mean, you should have had people from the stocks and exchange regulators, from financial sector.
Sure.
I mean, those people are there. But, you know, also the moment you have a joint investigation team where you have somebody from the ISI sitting as part of the team, you know, it's going to be loaded. The guy from the ISI is obviously going to carry more weight than any civilian.
Does this work as a positive for the Prime Minister or a negative?
It's a negative for the Prime Minister because, you know, if it goes against him, it will be very difficult for him to challenge it because this will have the backing of the military. You know, anyone from the ISI or the MI, military intelligence, will have the blessings of the army chief. And obviously, if anything goes against Nawaz Sharif, you know, that will also have the blessings of the army chief.
But isn't the army also cognizant of the fact that he's an immensely popular figure in Punjab, and most of the cadre of the military is made up of Punjabis?
Well, you know, I mean,
is that too protracted?
You know, in Pakistan, the army is beholden to no one. I mean, the only institution that the army cares about is the army. they really don't, care very much about democracy. It's it's been shown that a coup in the present day wouldn't pay off. You can't do what Musharraf did in '99. Today, if there was a coup, the costs would be too high. So the military is very content to sit in the background and manipulate things from the background, and which is what they have been doing for several years now. I mean, Nawaz Sharif came to power with a majority.
Right.
But today, he is one of the weakest prime ministers, that Pakistan has seen in several years. And, don't forget, he goes into elections next year. So he's not going to do anything that would, anger the army. He would not do anything that would go against his party. So, he's on a very, very sticky wicket right now. And let's not forget another thing, the Supreme Court in the past has been able to throw out a Pakistani Prime Minister. Yusuf Raza Gilani was thrown out by the by the Supreme Court.
But, his supporters, Prime Minister Sharif's supporters, are saying that his name doesn't actually figure in the papers. Do you think that's a technicality, that this is still thin ice for the Sharif family?
It's really thin ice because, whose names are in the papers? The names of Hussein and Hassan Nawaz, his sons, and Maryam Sharif. Maryam Sharif, more importantly, is being seen as his heir. So, it's a very small, it's a very tricky way to kind of deflect things from Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. It's his 3 kids, and these kids are linked to him.
Absolutely. What about the political significance of this entire probe? Elections next year, the PTI chairman going, all guns for blazing for the Sharif family. Where does this place the opposition? Is this the ideal time for them to sort of overtake the political landscape? And do you think they have it in them to do it?
Well, look, you have basically, for all practical purposes, you have 3 parties which matter in the opposition. You have the Awami National Party in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which is really, it's a regional player. The Pakistan People's Party was a national party, but since the last election, it's become virtually a regional player. It's relegated to Sindh. In his mind, Imran Khan possibly thinks he's going to be the Prime Minister, but going by support across the country, it's not going to happen. Okay. Unless somebody props him up. And when I say somebody, I'm talking about the military. Unless the military props him up, I don't see him becoming Prime Minister anytime soon.
But he is seen as close to the military.
Yeah, he's seen as close to the military, but his party doesn't have the sort of infrastructure, the sort of grassroots presence in all the 4 provinces. The only party that has a very strong presence in Punjab and to some extent in the other provinces is Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif's party. So even if he were to be disqualified or some action were to be taken against him, then they would probably set up Shehbaz Sharif to become the Prime Minister. Okay, but it is going to be troublesome for him.
Okay, but you said that the Prime Minister himself is on a sticky wicket. Isn't the PMLN in a quagmire of sorts itself? Not only is the ruling person right now facing this probe, but the second rung, the sons, Maryam Nawaz, who's considered the heir, Shehbaz Sharif himself. There's also the case of the brother-in-law, Ishaq Dar, coming up in the case as well. Where does this leave the PMLN, popularity aside?
Well, I think they will definitely have a problem if this hearing were to go against the Prime Minister and the Supreme Court were to take some action against Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif. But the fact remains that, possibly Shehbaz Sharif could emerge unscathed from here. Maybe there would be no strictures or rulings against him. So he could easily step into, leading the party. Ishaq Dar is an important player in the PMLN, but I don't think he's ever been considered sort of Prime Minister material. He's always one of the number 2, number 3 kind of guys. Maryam Nawaz, well, if it goes against her, then definitely there is a problem with the next generation of leaders. But then, this would probably be for a few years. By the time of the next election after this one, they could have bounced back.
But, all the opposition party leaders are saying that whatever the outcome of this probe is, the fact is that he's lost moral credibility. The Sharif family, is morally bound to step down after this probe. Do you think that that's, asking for too much, and that really the agenda needs to be pushed much further in more strong terms? I
think, moral credibility, I think in most South Asian countries hasn't become a reason for people to step aside. I mean, unless they're taken away kicking and screaming. I don't think, you know, even if this were to go against Nawaz Sharif, this is not going to hurt him so much that he's finished. You know, it's not like what happened to Musharraf, that he would be finished, thrown out, and, you know, he'd be relegated. Don't forget, this is a man who's been Prime Minister 3 times. And he stands a pretty good chance of becoming a Prime Minister for the 4th time if there is no stricture against him, you know, by the Supreme Court, if he's not barred from contesting elections. So I think this is going to deal a huge blow to the PMLN and to Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif if it goes against him. But I don't think it will be such a strong blow that, you know, his days as a politician